Tonight, Michael Vick, the primetime exclusive from NFL superstar to convict and back.
The toughest moment of my life, tougher than any football game that I've lost.
The dogfighting scandal that sent him to prison.
On one hand, I love dogs. On the other hand, you know, I was in love with the competition.
His redemption and his $100 million comeback. Now Michael Vick tells his side of the story.
I just fell into that trap and started believing what I wanted to believe.
Plus the one man who Piers Morgan tonight. Good evening. Our big story tonight, the redemption of Michael Vick. He was on top of the world as a star quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, the richest player in the league with a record $130 million contract. That's millions more in endorsements. But it all came crashing down in 2007 when police raided a house that he owned and uncovered an illegal dogfighting ring. Vick spent 18 months in federal prison for his role in running the ring and his involvement in the killing of dogs. He declared bankruptcy in 2008 and was released from prison the following year. Now Michael Vick is the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. But did he ever expect to make such a spectacular comeback? He tells the story of his long road to redemption in the book Finally Free, an autobiography, and Michael Vick joins me now for a primetime exclusive interview. Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
What does Finally Free mean?
And, you know, the title speaks for itself. I think, you know, finally free, free in the mind, you know, free in the body, free in the soul, and, you know, ready to, you know, take that step forward and you know, leave the past to the past. And, you know, it's something that, you know, I wanted to do a long time ago, from the time I picked up the pen and started writing the book. So, you know, now it's here and it's finally coming to fruition.
What did you learn about yourself when you finished the book and you covered this extraordinary story, and we'll come to some of the details? What did you learn about Michael Vick?
Well, I learned that I wasn't as forthright as I always wanted to be and thought I could be. You know, being in a prison cell, you have a lot of time to sit back and think about, you know, the things that you didn't do so right. And, you know, as knowing myself, I know I was supposed to do those things correctly. You know, so I felt like I was a liar in a sense. And I wanted to change it, but it was too late. I was off in the dark in a prison cell with no opportunity to, you know, explain, you know, or even, you know, ask for forgiveness.
What was the lowest moment for you of the whole thing?
I think the lowest moment was when I, you know, had to tell my son that I was going to prison and that I was going to be going for 2 years.
Because it came up on television, right? You were watching television with him.
Correct.
And up flashes this news.
Correct.
That you may be going to prison for several years.
Yeah.
And there's your young son.
Yeah.
And he screams out. He's like, what is this? How do you deal with that?
He just broke down crying. It shocked me because I didn't think he was able to understand the prison concept and what it meant. But I think he's seen it so much and it became so repetitive that, and being a young kid, you know, there's a lot smarter these days than, you know, than we were. He picked up on it, and he just knew it wasn't good. It wasn't, you know, pictures of me smiling and, you know, pictures of gratitude. It was pictures of, you know, me walking into a courthouse and, you know, them saying derogatory things at the moment.
When you came to tell him what you had done, it's a hard thing for a father to do.
It's tough.
How did you explain it?
Well, the situation came about when his mom told me that he had been getting teased by some of his friends in school, which was solely my fault, which is a situation that was out of my control. So I really didn't have to sit him down and explain. He came to me, and you know, what can you tell a kid that's, you know, 4 years old, 4.5 years old, who, you know, don't understand exactly what dogfight mean, don't understand why his dad is going to jail, and, you know, really can't understand the explanation in detail and how deep it was. And the only thing I could tell him was that Daddy was leaving.
Hard moment.
Tough moment, toughest moment of my life, tougher than any football game that I've lost, tougher than any sack that I've taken, any amount of money that I've lost.
Reading your story, a few things sprang out at me. Because I think to put in context what happened to you and why you ended up where you did, you've got to understand some of your background, where you grew up in Virginia, the kind of culture that you grew up in, the streets that you grew up in. It was a violent place. You know, you say in the book there was one summer where you heard gunfire every single night of that summer. I can't even imagine that kind of existence. You know, I grew up in a leafy little village on the south coast of England. It's a totally alien concept to me. Tell me about what it is like to live in that kind of atmosphere.
You know, it's a very forbidden place sometimes, and it can seem that way. You know, you try to make the most out of it. At the present time, you don't see what's around you. You know, you're living in the moment, and you really don't understand, you know, how detrimental it is, you know, to the environment. And, you know, hearing gunshots every night, seeing all, you know, forms of violence, you just think it's the norm. And
does it desensitize violence? Does it make it not seem, you know, to me, the concept of dogfighting, and we'll come to that, is horrific. But then I was never brought up in a situation where it seemed normal.
It makes it seem like, you know, violence isn't something that, you know, everybody's against. You know, it makes it seem like it's right, you know, because it's so consistent, night in and night out, you know, day in and day out. So, you know, you start to believe that, you know, there's no consequences behind it. And it's
sort of
unfortunate.
meaningless.
It's meaningless. It's unfortunate.
You say in the book about the first dogfight you witnessed. You were 8 years old. One day a friend and I stepped outside the building where I lived in the Ridley Circle housing project. We saw kids, and you go into the detail of this. You said then you were scared to death of dogs that you didn't know. You jumped on a mailbox to watch it. And from the ringside seats, we saw guys putting their dogs' faces right in front of one another. They would grab and they would fight. I remember two of them were fighting when a third, smaller dog jumped on the back of one of the larger dogs to make it 2-on-1. I didn't know what to think of it all. In a way, it captured my attention, but it also seemed mean, even cruel. The bottom line, though, is that on that very day, my fascination with dogfighting began. I wish it had never happened. What you saw as an 8-year-old boy, although horrific, seemed exciting to you, did it?
Yeah, because, you know, I always had a passion for animals, and I always had a dog. I kept a dog wherever I can keep it. My mom wouldn't let me keep one in the house, so I always snuck and had a dog hidden somewhere. Took care of it, you know, with my own money, however I could get it. But the day I seen that dog fight, something changed. I didn't know dogs would react in the way that they did. And, you know, although it may seem intriguing, you know, nobody ever said that it was not the right thing to do, that it was wrong. And not making excuses for anybody, because, you know, nobody has to tell you anything. You know, you only go off what you see, you know, at such a young age. And, you know, I just fell into that trap and started believing what I wanted to believe. And it was never a point in my life where somebody tried to correct me or said that this was wrong. And as I grew up, I continued to think that, you know, it wasn't any consequences behind it, or that I would never get in trouble for it.
You see, they'll read the book and they'll see you claiming you're a dog lover. And they'll say, how can you be a dog lover when you killed a lot of dogs because they were too weak to fight, when you enjoyed and made money from dogs fighting? How can you be both? How can you be a dog lover that enjoys doing that too?
I know it may seem contradictory, but, you know, that's just the person that I was. You know, on one hand, I love dogs. On the other hand, you know, I was in love with the competition behind it. And, you know, for some reason, I couldn't, you know, really see, you know, the meaning behind it, or why I was really doing it, or what really fascinated me, you know, other than just being involved. And, you know, if somebody would have told me that at a young age that you would go to prison for it, then I think I would have went in a different direction, because my whole life was predicated on me accomplishing my one dream, and that's making it to the NFL. And if it was any, you know, obstacle that would stand in my way, I would, you know, I would avoid it. And that was just a set of advice that I never received. And I think if I would have, you know, I would have used it correctly like I did in other situations.
Did nobody say to you, steer clear of this?
Nobody.
No parent, no family member,
Nobody
no
knew.
friend?
Nobody knew. You know, it took place in places where, you know, you would have never thought.
It was a dark secret that you had.
Or the times of night that you would have never thought of, you know, unforbidden and unseen. And it was an underground world, you know, that we lived in. And
Did you, be honest here, when you were doing it, did you enjoy it?
you know, I enjoyed the competition aspect of it. You know, as far as the cruelness and, you know, the grueling part of it, and just being honest and being candid, no. You know, I wish it would have been done a different way. But, you know, to be honest, if I said I didn't, then I would be lying. But that's just the person that I was, and that's what, you know, that's what I believed in. That's what I thought was, you know, satisfactory to me.
Let's take a short break, Mike. I want to come back and deal with the consequences of what you were doing with the dogfighting, which in your case turned out to be catastrophic.
Absolutely.
One of the great downfalls in sporting history.
Yeah.